Welcome to the final phase, the integrate phase of Rethink Health's pathway for transforming regional health. I'm Ruth Wagaman, one of Rethink Health's directors of our stewardship work, and I want to share with you in this presentation what we've learned about the typical challenges that leaders face in stewarding their regional efforts into and through the integrate phase of regional health transformation. If you'd like to explore an overview of the pathway, you can find that presentation in the stewardship guides on Rethink Health's website. As with each phase, we'll address in this presentation key pitfalls and momentum builders of the integrate phase of the pathway. If you'd like to identify which phase your own effort is in, you can find the Pathway Self-Diagnostic tool on the main Stewardship Guides page. For now, let's explore how groups that have worked together move forward after they've successfully engaged in the innovation and discontinuous change that leads to real system redesign. We've seen that the main risks of the redesign phase is getting stuck by failing to understand and address the areas of resistance and to use opportunities for innovation. The regional efforts that have been successful in their redesign work in Phase 4 are really forging new territory. We're aware of no wholly transformed, stable, and exemplary regional health systems yet in the United States. However, there are three main reasons that regional efforts continue moving through the redesign phase toward the integrate phase. First of all, they exercise influence upward and outward, taking on broader contextual factors and influencing policy. Second, the core stewardship functions are clear and they're legitimate, able to take authoritative action in the region. And third, they cast a wider net for inspiration, looking at other sectors and countries to identify innovative sustainability strategies for their health systems. We call this final phase of a regional change effort integrate to characterize the main work of the phase. The work of Phase 5 is to integrate the lessons and results of the redesign experiments conducted in Phase 4 into the ongoing work of the health system, and to establish these as new standards in the stakeholder organizations. The ongoing work of Phase 5 is about ensuring a long-term stewardship structure that will hold accountability for attending to changes in the environment to ensure continuous adaptation and to sustain a culture of learning. The long-term stewardship structure in Phase 5 has an ongoing means of ensuring the legitimacy of the decision-making group, including and especially incorporating citizen voices and shaping long-term priorities for the system. Finally, in a Phase 5 effort, stakeholders are sharing upside and downside risk of the system's performance. Payment reform has been achieved, and key stakeholders in the system are no longer fighting perverse incentives that undercut regional-level aims. One emerging Phase 5 region in the northwestern United States illustrates certain aspects of the stewardship of a Phase 5 effort. I want to reiterate that we're not aware of any fully developed Phase 5 regions, and so the example that I offer here is only a partial example focused on the stewardship structure of one future-oriented effort. We would certainly welcome learning of any examples that you know of Phase 5 efforts. In this example region, the work of radically improving care, of bringing the whole regional population under the care of providers who are paid for value is core to their mission, and they're aiming toward what is often called an accountable health community. They've been working together on alignment and redesign for the population health of the region for several decades. The stewardship structure for the long haul is well established, reaching out to involve elected representatives from among citizens to sit on the steering group for the effort alongside senior leaders from public health and healthcare and community organizations. This group's charge is to continue the focus on making the whole system work for everyone. A 20-plus year journey so far. The stewardship structure exists to keep a shared focus on the future and on continuous learning. It also has built into its composition places for residents to be part of the decision-making body, and it convenes groups from the public to identify and choose priorities for further improvements to the system. As with all phases, there are common pitfalls that leaders tend to face in the integrate phase. We'll cover 4 different pitfalls of this phase and then address each one in turn by describing the kinds of momentum builders that leaders can put in place to help avoid these pitfalls. The major pitfall for Phase 5 is that the regional efforts that have been successful in their redesign work in Phase 4 are really forging new territory. As they enter into Phase 5, these stewards and innovators are truly pioneers. This pitfall is simply the inevitable stumbles and trial and error that has to occur when imagining one's way into a future where the path isn't well illuminated, and groups of collaborators across organizations are inventing their future. A second common pitfall of Phase 5 that comes directly from success in Phase 4 is that many excellent redesign efforts take a very long time to show any results, especially those that are aimed at raising the health of the population through long-term efforts to shape the environments in which people live. The significant changes in the community itself, the stewardship structure, the active engagement of citizens, the presence of strongly shared priorities, a convincing system strategy, these are all significant and necessary progress, but they're often not experienced as hard evidence of success. That radically better future, people thriving, costs under control, healthier adults and families, it may be showing signs of emerging, but the big positive changes in measures of costs, of health, of quality of care, and many other important outcomes are not yet wholly visible. Under these conditions, it's possible for funding sources that pay off for results to become too small or too limited to sustain these integration efforts. And funders look for major results. They may lose faith, and leaders who need to tell a story of success tend to feel deflated. The third common pitfall is that even in a stable, successful collaborative that has a long history of trust, of conviction, of shared investment, even those can be vulnerable to big or disruptive changes in the larger environment. For example, economic downturns can put unexpected financial pressure on every initiative. Shifts in the local labor market can undo efforts to promote family well-being. The arrival of new payers or new producers who have not been part of the shared effort can put well-established relationships in jeopardy. All these changes can occur any time in a health system transformation effort. What makes them particularly troubling in Phase 5 is that many such collaboratives have reached very hard-won agreements by then. For example, agreeing how to define savings and what to do with those savings to reinvest in upstream drivers of health. When those agreements are called into question because the larger context makes them worth less than expected, or when new players challenge the current agreements, it can feel particularly costly and deflating to have to revisit the significant investment people have made in trusting each other and in reaching hard-won consensus arrangements. Finally, one more ironic pitfall that arises from success is that when an effort succeeds in investing in and supporting the development of a truly strong coordinating organization or backbone, that entity has an enormous leadership role. It makes all the shared innovation and integration work possible. That highly visible leadership role can lead stewards of the long-term system, those whose job is steering, priorities, resource allocation, to feel that their role is less necessary or less significant, and they can lose focus and a sense of how necessary they are for the long term. But it doesn't have to be that way. Integrate phase efforts can benefit from deliberate attention to a handful of key practices that can sustain momentum in this late phase work and ensure a strong stewardship structure for the long haul. First, the power of narrative as a means of maintaining motivation continues in Phase 5. The significant scaffolding that has been built, the longevity of the collaboration, the sturdy stewardship structure, the engagement of residents, the progress toward objective aims, these can all be part of a compelling story of us that articulates both for the residents of the region and for potential funders just what has been built as a consequence of the collaborative, and why those are signs of progress that are connected to the long-term vision, and what will be possible in the future as a consequence. Second, consider how your effort might take on broader contextual factors and exercise an influence on policies, exercising influence upward, outward, perhaps at the state level, perhaps with entities whose parent organizations are not located within the region. Stewardship groups with significant track records of success and a strong partnership with local entities are highly plausible partners for dialogue about how these entities with a broader focus might be positive contributors to their success as well. Second, in Phase 5, it is time to revisit the stewardship structure and clarify the critical leadership functions that different groups play in sustaining a healthy health system. As a reminder, there are multiple stewardship groups and functions that need to be in place for this kind of effort to thrive, and the role these groups play is each distinct and vital to success. While a strong backbone or staff organization is essential, someone who is paying daily attention to the success of the array of initiatives, the long-term stewardship group is also attentive to trends in the broader environment. It's focused on strategic priorities, and it has a separate and equally important function. They must continue to be a legitimate and authoritative voice in the work of stewardship. Finally, stewards of a Phase 5 effort can cast a wider net for inspiration. There are models from which leaders can take inspiration and learn from as they steward their systems into Phase 5. Other stewards in other sectors have grappled with the issues of system transformation and can serve not as models to imitate, but as fellow practitioners from whom one can learn. For example, there has been significant progress in the area of energy sustainability and significant redesign of systems, standards, norms, and processes that have been fully integrated in how organizations and communities work and live. There are many communities around the world that have formed local stewardship bodies to sustain fisheries and to prevent overuse of their water supply. Moreover, while no country has gone through precisely the set of changes or traveled the same journey from a fragmented system to a truly integrated system that we face, there are examples in other countries of what a well-integrated system that enables a community to thrive can look like. These models can provide inspiration and rethinking that illuminate some of the murkier aspects of the pathway through Phase 5, and they can shine some light on potential strategies and future visions to sustain momentum in our own change efforts. I don't want to suggest imitating any one system, but with a set of examples with different structures and with different funding practices, stewards of health system transformation can take different ideas and consider how they might be appropriately applied in your own regional context. Please see the case examples that we provide on the Phase 5 page to see some movement in the United States toward Phase 5 systems as well. Finally, if you've identified your change effort as presently in about Phase 5, the integrate phase of the pathway, and you'd like to learn more about how you can focus your activities to build more momentum for change, the developmental assessment can help you understand more about what the strengths and weaknesses are of your regional effort. Rethink Health, working with many leaders like you around the U.S., has identified 11 conditions which together increase the chances over time that real transformative change takes root and leads to greater and greater impact and ultimately to radically better regional health. Each of these 11 conditions, from stewardship of a system-level strategy through a local culture of health, is an important part of your change effort at every stage of the pathway. The developmental assessment will help you rate your effort on each of these 11 conditions. If you want to move beyond the integrate phase of the pathway, take a look at your scores on these 11 conditions. The more that are scoring 4 or better, that is, beyond the redesign phase of the pathway, the more momentum you have going for your effort in the integrate phase. Pay particular attention to any areas with lower scores. For example, if you indicate that your effort does not yet have deeply engaged citizens, mechanisms in place for citizens to get involved in shaping their own health system, that may be a particularly fruitful area of emphasis for your change effort. Consider completing the developmental assessment with your learning partner and with the change leaders who are most critical to your effort. We've covered in this presentation the main pitfalls and momentum builders for stewarding your effort into and through the integrate phase of the pathway for regional health transformation. If you believe your effort is poised to enter the integrate phase or actively working on integration in your health system, please share your story with us at info@rethinkhealth.org. To download all the tools described in this presentation and to learn more about stewardship in the integrate phase of the pathway, please visit rethinkhealth.org/integrate.